Chapter 38. And he made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits the breadth thereof, 4 and 3 cubits the height thereof. And he made the horns thereof upon the 4 corners of it. The horns thereof were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with brass. And he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and the flesh hooks, and the fire pans. All the vessels thereof made he of brass. And he made for the altar a grating of network of brass under the ledge round about it beneath, reaching halfway up. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grating of brass, to be holders for the staves. And he made the staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with brass. And he put the staves into the rings on the sides of the altar wherewith to bear it. And he made it hollow with planks. And he made the laver of brass, and the base thereof of brass, of the mirrors of the serving women that did service at the door of the tent of meeting. And he made the court for the south side. Southward the hangings of the court were of fine twined linen, 100 cubits. The pillars were 20, and their sockets 20 of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side 100 cubits, the pillars 20, and their sockets 20 of brass. The hooks of the pillars, their fillets of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10, the hooks of the pillars and their sockets of silver. And for the east side eastward 50 cubits, the hangings for the one side of the gate were 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And so for the other side, on this hand and on that hand, by the gate of the court, were hangings of 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. All the hangings of the court round about were of fine twined linen. And the sockets for the pillars were of brass, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver, and the overlaying of their capitals of silver. And all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the screen for the gate of the court was the work of the weaver in colors of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. And 20 cubits was the length, and the height and the breadth was 5 cubits, answerable to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets 4 of brass, their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their capitals and their fillets of silver. And all the pins of the tabernacle and of the court round about were of brass. These are the accounts of the tabernacle, even the tabernacle of the testimony, as they were rendered according to the commandment of Moses, through the service of the Levites, by the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest, and Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Kir, of the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord commanded Moses. And with him was Aholiab, the son of Ahishamach, of the tribe of Dan, a craftsman and a skillful workman, and a weaver in the colors, in blue, and in purple, and in scarlet, and fine linen. All the gold that was used for the work in all the work of the sanctuary, even the gold of the offering, was 29 talents, and 730 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And the silver of them that were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents, and 1,715 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. A bekah a head, that is, half a shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for every one that passed over to them that are numbered, from 20 years old and upward, for 600,000 and 3,550 men. And the 100 talents of silver were for casting the sockets of the sanctuary, and the sockets of the veil, 100 sockets for the 100 talents, a talent for a socket. And of the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars, and overlaid their capitals, and made fillets for them. And the brass of the offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And therewith he made the sockets to the door of the tent of meeting, and the brazen altar, and the brazen grating for it, all the vessels of the altar, and the sockets of the court round about, and the sockets of the gate of the court, and all the pins of the tabernacle, and all the pins of the court round about. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. We are continuing once again as Bezalel and Aholiab, and some hard working people with them. We're making all the things for the tent. In the last chapter, we had constructed the altar of incense, and with its rings and its staves, and we had constructed the ark with the cover, and as with the staves to go in, and they was inserted into the rings as where they would stay. They would never be removed. And the lampstand was made, or the candlestick, as it is referenced, with all of its decorations and lamps, as it was made of one piece of beaten work, and we also the anointing oils, the pure incense, and the spices, after the manner of a perfume was created, and we'll find out the work is continuing as we pick it up here in verse 1. And he made the altar of burnt offerings of acacia wood. 5 cubits was the length thereof, and 5 cubits the breadth thereof, foursquare, and 3 cubits was the height thereof. So he makes the altar of burnt offerings of acacia wood. This acacia wood here, once again, is this tree. It's going to be something that's chewed down. It's split out. This is what it's going to be made of. That's what a tree is. And this here tree was known for its thorns, this one that was exalted out of the forest. We're going to make an altar. Now, this altar here is where the altar of burnt offerings, it's also the altar of sacrifices, where they would offer the burnt offerings, these things that would be consumed by the fire, or that's the judgment, to make atonement for what we do. There was 5 cubits was the length thereof. 5, because there's grace being measured out here, and the length of this, as we'll find out, it's what it's determined for, grace. And 5 cubits was the breadth, and grace is what the measure that it's going to be used for. It's foursquare. We'll find out it's equal in its proportions, because that's the work of the Lord. That's the way Hashem does everything. It's equal in the proportions according to his design. And 3 cubits the height thereof. 3 cubits, because that's going to complete that measure in the height of it. That's what it will achieve to complete, or to make that strong. 2, and he made the horns thereof upon the 4 corners of it. The horns thereof were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with brass. So he makes the horns. That's the strengths of it. Now are the warnings you might want to say thereof upon the 4 corners, because that's the places where it turns. That's its limits. It has to turn there. These 4 corners are going to be the work of the Lord. The horns thereof were of one piece. It's part of the whole thing, you might say. These strengths that make it up are all one piece. It's all the work of the Lord. And he overlaid it with brass. This brass here, as I've stated, should be copper. As we'll find out, it's not made of the most desirable, but we'll find out it's still workable. It can be beaten out and shaped. As we'll find out, I use it for to compare mistakes and judgments we have to learn for ourselves by our own mistakes. 3, and he made all the vessels of the altar, the pots and the shovels, the basins, the flesh hooks and the fire pans, all the vessels thereof. He made of brass. So he makes all the vessels. These are all the things that are going to do the service of the altar. These are things that are used in that service. The pots, the shovels, the basins, and the flesh hooks. These would be to get rid of the ashes. The basins are that which is going to catch the blood, and the flesh hooks are that which flips the meat over, or grabs the hooks into the meat. And the fire pans, these are going to be the ash pans, all the vessels were made of brass. All these things that are used for that altar, as we'll find out, the altar is made of copper, and all these utensils are made of copper as well. 4. And he made for the altar a grating of network of brass under the ledge round about beneath, reaching halfway up. So he makes for the altar, that's that place where the burnt offering is offered up. It's a grating. That's a cross hashing, you might say, of copper under the ledge round about beneath. It reaches about halfway up. So within it, inside, about halfway up, we find out there is a grate. It's made of copper. And we get these, but these are lessons, you might say, we learn, and as we overlap them in a period of time through our life, we would get the blessings and the judgments we have received from Hashem to makes up the grating. 5. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 ends of the grating of brass to be holders for the staves. And he cast these 4 rings. These 4 rings, once again, are the work of the Lord as he separated in these rings, these things that go around. It's like something that's going to continue. It's in the 4 ends, because that's the work of the Lord. And all these 4 corners where they turn. And we could look at these rings like time. It takes a little bit of time to go all the way around the ring. And it's in the 4 ends of the grating of brass. So all 4 corners of this grating, there's going to be a ring. And it's for holders, for the staves. We'll find 2 rings on each side. And he made the staves of acacia wood and overlaid them with brass. So he makes these staves. That's he's going to bear it up. Bear that up. We'll find they're used for that purpose, and he overlays them with copper as well. We'll find out it's equal to what the altar is made for. 7. And he put the staves into the rings on the sides of the altar wherewith to bear it. He made it hollow with planks. So he puts the staves into the rings on the sides of the altar. That's what they was used for on these things that were made plain, those things that would bear it up to be made plain on that altar of copper, even where we learn for ourselves from our own mistakes. We have to make atonement for these things to the Lord. There's going to be, we'll find out, there's a punishment. There's a consequence for what we've done. And then there is the redemption, my friend. There's the restoration of the Lord that gives us to try again. But he made these saves on the sides to bear up that altar. He made it hollow with these planks, or with these that were split out from the acacia tree. 8. And he made the laver of brass, and the base thereof of brass, of the mirrors of the serving women that did serve at the door of the tent of meeting. So he makes the laver. The laver is the basin, or you might say, the wash pot. It's made of copper as well. We'll find out that's what holds that water that cleanses you. The base thereof is of brass, and what supports it are these things of brass or copper. We'll find out it's going to be what we give ourselves to go by in the long run to keep us out of trouble. We have a way to, as we'll see with these mirrors, reflect or see our own reflection even in this, that where we can wash our hands, learning from our own mistakes that we make ourselves clean. We'll find out this is a necessary thing to do before you do anything in the services of the tent. But of these mirrors of serving women that did the service at the door, and these women are these things from men, they do the service at the door. That's a place where they go in and out of that tent of meeting, place where they gather, that one understanding. These mirrors are that reflection of these women, of these things from men. You might say sometimes they're pleasantries. other words, we're more than merciful to ourselves. We should be as merciful to others as well. Maybe a lesson we need to learn there. 9. And he made the court for the south side southward. The hangings of the court were of fine twined linen, 100 cubits. Well, changing subjects again. He made the court. It was for the south side southward. The hangings of the court were of fine twined linen. So now we're going to make the court. The court is the outer surroundings of these hangings, the curtains, because we'll find out there was the court, then there was the tent, and then there was the Holy of Most Holies within it. This is the court were of fine twined linen, 800 cubits. As we can look at this court, it's like the outer garment. On the south side, even these things are going to be made plain on the south side southward. That south's always that dry, arid area where we get an example of what has happened in the past. Maybe kind of like taking a good look at history sometimes. The hangings of the court were fine twined linen. And these curtains that go around that outer enclosure were of this fine twine. They was woven finely, you might say, 100 cubits. And because judgment was being measured out. That's what a cubit is. It's a measure. We can look at what that measure is actually. But we're going to use just the cubit as the measure. It's 100, and that's judgment being measured out. 10. Their pillars were 20, and their sockets 20 of brass. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. Their pillars were 20. These things that support them were 20. Their sockets 20. That's on the outside enclosure. We'll find out there was 2 sockets per each pillar on the tent itself, but on the outer enclosure there was 1, and these were 20. 20 is to witness the law. It's redemption. A socket's just something that adds some strength to it. They are all made of brass. It's the outer court, so all of it's going to be made of copper as far as the sockets go. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver, because these hooks, remember the hook is Bob, and it is the 6th letter of the alphabet. These works, you might say, these work of man is that's in these pillars. We'll find out these things that support that fact that we get to witness the law. And their fillets something that joins it together, hooks it all together, were of silver. We'll find out these kind of represent the mistakes other people make, and the fact that they didn't listen to the Lord in the first place. 11. For the north side, 100 cubits, their pillars 20, and their sockets 20 of brass, the hooks of the pillars and the fillets of silver. So the north side's that place we get judgment. Those things are made plain even from the judgment. There's judgment measured out. We'll find out we get to see these things, and we can witness these things. They're on the left if we're looking in. Their pillars are 20. We'll find out their supports. These things are going to hold them up are 20. The fact that we get to witness the law, that's redemption. That's what 20 is. Their sockets, these things that give them strength, are 20. And that's what strengthens the whole thing, the fact that we get to witness the law. It's redemption from judgment. We get the punishment. That's the judgment. And then we get the redemption. That's all of copper. Well, copper because we had to make the mistake ourselves and learn for ourselves. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. But the hooks, that's what's going to support the hangings, are of silver. In other words, we kind of get that I told you so here. With their fillets of silver, these things are joined together with those things that others have done, and we can now learn from their mistakes and see, well, everybody's making the same mistake, and we can get that little support from the mistake that we make ourselves 12. For the west side were hangings of 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10, the hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And on the west side, that west side's that way the sun's going down, looking toward the back of the tent. There were these hangings of 50 cubits, and this is going to be behind the overall tent because we're still talking about the court. But that's the way, that side where the sun's going down. We can, and that's what makes plain over there. We get the sunset, darkness is coming, these hangings of 50 cubits. 50, that's 5 tens, or 10 fives, any way you want to look at it. 50 is divine knowledge, you can say, because there's grace in the law, and the law is for grace. That's what's measured out here in these curtains. Their pillars are 10. And the supports are 10, we'll find out, because it's the law. It's the law, always is. And their sockets, 10. And these things that support them, 10. Because it's the law. Each pillar has a socket that it slides into. It's kind of like a little foundation, gives us some support. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. So once again, these hooks and these pillars, these things that support, these hooks are made of silver. It's 5, it's the work of man and the mistakes they make. Gives a little support. These fillers, these things that hook them together, we'll find out even that joins it is of silver. 13. And for the east side, eastward, 50 cubits. And for the east side, even that, it's made plain where the sun's coming up, where enlightenment it is. It's towards the opening or the entrance of the tent. It's eastward. That's where enlightenment comes from, 50 cubits. There's divine knowledge being measured out. There, we'll find out law. The law is grace. And grace is the law being measured out. 14. The hangings for the one side of the gate were 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And the hangings for the one side. We're going to be talking about the gate now. That's on the east side, that place where the 50 cubits are measured out. The hangings for the one side, on one side of the gate, we'll see gate in brackets, and that means it was added for a better explanation, but the gate is the place where you go in and out of the court here. There were 15 cubits. 15, 10 and 5 will get grace from the law measured out. 15 is also the rest measured out. This is where you can go in on rest, and we'll get to witness. It's equal on both sides. Their pillars were 3, and it kind of completes that whole knowledge and understanding. Their sockets are 3, that which gives them foundation. It's complete. We'll find out because it's made of copper, 15. And so for the other side, on this hand, and on that hand by the gate of the court were hangings of 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. So for the one side, as we'll see, on this hand and on that hand, both sides by the gate, that's the place where you go in and out. They gather for judgment of the court. That's the outer enclosure, were hangings. These are the curtains. They were 15 cubits. Once again, the Lord's measuring out the rest because it's within the sanctuary. It's within the place. When we come together for the judgment that the Lord's going to give us, we'll find out. We get the judgment, then we'll get the mercy of the Lord through His redemptive power. Their pillars are 3, and that's going to be these strengths that complete that whole understanding and the purpose of the court, and their sockets were 3. And that which gives them the strength is complete. All the hangings of the court round about were fine twined linen, all the way around. These things were fine twined, woven together to give it a very fine covering, you might say. As we'll see, there is a space of 20 cubits, and that would be the redemption, or we can witness the law being measured out there in the opening itself. That will be covered with a screen. 17. And the sockets for the pillars were of brass, the hooks of the pillars were, and their fillets of silver. and the overlaying of their capitals of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the sockets, these are the bases, these that give it the strength to hold it up, to help support it. For the pillars, these are that which support the supports herself, these things that were stood up, made erect. Well, that's, once again, we'll find out it's copper. From these lessons we have to learn ourselves. The hooks of the pillars and their fillets of silver. And these things that are going to support the hangings, these hooks, the work of man, even of the pillar. Those other supports, we'll find out that was from the law itself. They're fillets of silver. These things that would join them together of silver. Even the lessons we can learn from others. All the pillars of the court were filled with silver. All the pillars of the court were filled. All these pillars, all the way around, these things that support, these things that are erect and stand up, are filleted with these lessons we can learn from others. And the screen for the gate of the court was of work of the weaver in colors, of blue and purple and scarlet, fine twined linen. 20 cubits was the length, and the height in the breadth, was 5 cubits, answerable to the hangings of the court. So the screen here is the place where you went in and out of the gate. It's like the door. Of course, it's a curtain, as we'll find out, made in the work of a weaver in colors. It was woven in these blending of colors. There's blue, purple, and scarlet. And as I've said, the blue is a light that causes growth. Blue is the true light and understanding. We'll find out there's a scarlet light as well, the red. That's a little understanding we're going to have to get, you might say, through sin in this world. And this purple, of course, when we blend the two together, we got a understanding God gave us, and we got a little understanding we gather for ourselves from the flesh. We put them together, we get this purple, and this purple is going to add up to a royal color, a royal knowledge, even royal understanding, an understanding of kings and priests. It's made of fine twined linen. It's woven together in a very crafty fashion. 20 cubits was the length, and we'll find out that's what it was determined for. Redemption was being measured out here. You can witness the law. It's equal all the way around. And the height and the breadth was 5 cubits. So that's the breadth is what it's used for, and the height is what it will achieve. It's going to be grace measured out. We'll find out grace to everybody. Answerable to the hangings of the court. It's equal to all those curtains that go around to the court in the fact that the breadth and height of it is 19. And their pillars were 4, and their sockets 4 of brass, their hooks of silver, and their overlaying of the capitals, and their fillets of silver. Their pillars were 4. So there's going to be 4 pillars. That's these supports that are made erect around them were 4, because it's the work of God. All the whole thing is. Their sockets are 4. That's that which gives them strength, that which supports them, you might say, gives them a foundation. It's all the work of God. It's of brass. Of course, it's the judgments He's give you, and then the lessons you got from those judgments. And it's like sticking your hand in the fire. You learned that it was hot. You learned you could get burned. And accidents happen. Sometimes we get burned. We don't even try. We don't know you could get burned. Well, we still get burned. The hooks of silver. And once again, there's the work of men. We find out these lessons we can learn for ourselves. Overlaying of their capitals, that's their covering. These capitals are a decorative top, a decoration around the head, the fillets of silver, and these things that join them together of silver. Of course, as we'll see, it's all about the law and the lessons we can learn from it, and the ways we can learn from the law. We don't have to make the mistakes ourselves. We can learn from the mistakes of others, and even their understandings sometimes, as well as we can learn through just listening to what the Lord says. 20. All the pins of the tabernacle and the court round about were brass. All the fasteners of the tabernacle, these things that were used to fasten it together and hook it together, and of the court, everything of that court was of brass. Brass or copper. We're going to find out it's even these buttons were of brass or of copper. These things that hook it all together. That's going to be your job. 20. These are the accounts of the tabernacle, even the tabernacle of the testimony, as they were rendered according to the commandment of Moses through the service of the Levites by the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. Now, these are the accounts, or the recordings. What we're going to do now is we're changing subjects again. We're going to get into the weights and the recordings. We'll find out Moses commanded that everything be written down, that everything had to be written. We'll find out the Lord was having it wrote down because He's going to use it, my friends, as a witness. And everything was done through the service of the Levites, those that joined. It's by the work of Ithamar. Ithamar was that coast of the palm trees is what Ithamar. We can look at that. We find out these borders that's what a coast is. You reach the border, the edge of these palm trees, and the palm tree is a correct or an upright teaching. It was that which come forth from Aaron. He was the priest, or the one that stood before God. Aaron is the light bringer. Of course, we find the light always coming off of a fire. 22. And Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Ker, of the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord commanded Moses. And Bezalel was, of course, he's the defense of the mighty one. He's that. He is the son of this one born from Uri. Uri is fiery. Uri means a fiery, as in the light coming off of it, the one of Ker. Ker is growing pale in the whole. He is of the tribe, or those that come forth from Judah, those of praisings. And he's the one that made all that the Lord commanded Moses. And with him was Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, a craftsman, a skillful workman, a weaver in colors, in blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. And with him, or beside him, was Oholiab. He accompanied him. Oholiab is the tenth father. He's the one that come forth from Ahisamach, that brother of support, or this similar understanding that helps support all of it. He's of the tribe of Dan. That's those that come forth from judgment. He's a craftsman. That means that's a skillful workman. That's what a skillful workman is. He has ability of skill to craft and to weave in various colors, various appearances, whatever you want. It's in blue and purple and scarlet. Blue, these understandings that come from the Lord. Purple, even those royal understandings. And then this scarlet, this blue and scarlet mingled together to give us the purple. It's a fine twine linen, woven finely, as we weave the lessons of life, which God, these experiences even, that gives us finally. The garments that we were supposed to wear. 24. All the gold that was used for the work and all the work of the sanctuary, even the gold of the offering, was 20 and 9 talents, even 130 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. All the gold that was used for the work. All this gold, this is what comes off first. It belongs to God anyway. Everything belongs to the Lord anyway. We just give it all to Him. It was for the work. It was for the services, even the work of the sanctuary. That place that was sanctified, set aside, it belongs to God. Even the gold of the offerings. All the gold that was brought as an offering, and this was the sum of it. It was 20 and 9 talents, and 730 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel of the sanctuary just means a measure, a weight determined by the sanctuary. A weight's kind of like A weight is weighty. It's heavy. It's kind of like, kind of comes with it, whatever you got, and when you pick it up, it has a certain weight to it. And we can look at that like there's a certain punishment or portion that goes with everything. And these things that belong to God, the gold is weightier than other things. It means it should have more meaning. There's 20 and 9 talents. 20, witness the law, my friends, that is 22 tens, and we get redemption from that when we do. 9 is always the truth. 9 is a harvest, and we get that. A talent is a round of gold. These things that belong to God that go around. We'll find out even in time, in our understandings, we learn. We learn that it's all the work of God. 730 shekels. 7, that's perfection in judgments. We find out for the judgments, kind of like we feel a little pain. If we feel a little pain, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. We realize we're still alive, and we'll get to try again. 30 shekels, that was what it was dedicated for in the first place, you might say, being weighed out. 3 tens, it's so we could completely witness or strengthen the law itself. It's 25. And the silver of them that were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents, and 1,703 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. And this was the amount of the silver. We'll find out this silver was paid out in a redemptive due that would be taken, would change later on. It's the silver, of course. That's the mistakes we learned from others. Everybody is going to come by and pay a price. This is the total amount that was taken in of the whole congregation. There was 100 talents, and we'll find out there's judgments in this round because this is mistakes that we have to learn from others. There's still a little bit of price we have to pay because sometimes we get caught up with them. 1,715. 1,000. That's because it fulfills it. It's all fulfilled. 7 is the perfection in the judgments, or the complete, or the accomplished judgment, and it's to fulfill it so we can have a final lesson in these things. It's 315 shekels. 3 score are 3 20s. A score is 20. This is 60 in total. We'll find that's the work of man in the law. It would have been written as 6 tens, not 3 scores, but we can use that because it completes the redemption, this work of man in the law. And these 15 shekels. 15, we can find a little rest in it. But 15 is there's grace, there's law, and then there's grace, my friends. It's being weighed out. It's after the weight of the sanctuary. Of course, that's the judgment that's already set. There's a consequence for your action. Learn from it. Move forward. 26. A beka ahead. That is, half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary, for everyone that passed over to them that are numbered, from 20 years old and upward, for 600,000 and 3,550 men. It was a beka ahead. A beka is just simply a section. It's like it's something that's broke off, you might say. It was take a shekel and you break it in half. You get a beka. Yeah, it's after that weight of the shekel. It's a half a shekel. That's the weight of the sanctuary. Besides that, a shekel is just a weight. It's like a judgment. It's already been determined. It's the shekel of the sanctuary. It's the weight of that which was set aside. Belongs to God anyway. It's kind of like you hit your finger with a hammer. It's going to hurt. There you go. You got a little something that was weighed out automatically there. Understanding. Don't do that. For everyone that passed over to them that are numbered. And this is for everybody that was from 20 years old and upward, we'll see. Everybody that passed over, or you might say joined, that was 20 years old and upward. And that's the age, 20 years old and upward, my friend. We should have been able to witness the law and the greater understandings by now. The law should be taught to you from the time you're a child. That way, by the time you are a certain age, we can give it an age if we want. Some do. They use the age of 13 or so, 12, 13 years old. You should be the law should be something you should be trying to acquaint yourself with so you can exercise yourself in the understandings God give you from the beginning. That way, when you get to be 20 years old, you can be responsible for yourself. As we'll find out, this is when the weight or the judgments are going to start being, you'll be responsible for them. For 600,000, 3,550 men, this was the total of 600. That's the work of man in the judgments being fulfilled. 3,550 men, 3,000, because it completes the fulfillments. It gives it a witness and the strengths. That's the age you're responsible for yourself. 500, there's grace in the judgments, my son. And 50, 550, grace in the judgment, grace in the law, divine knowledge for men. 27. And the 100 talents of silver were for casting the sockets of the sanctuary and the sockets of the veil, 100 sockets for the 100 talents, a talent for a socket, and 100 talents of silver. Once again, there's judgment and these talents. A talent is a round of silver. It's these lessons we can learn from others, even those that sometimes think they're over us. They were for castings of silver, or for castings the sockets. That's what they used all this that they gathered from everybody for, to make the sockets, to make these foundations of the sanctuary. That's that place that was set aside. It gives a little foundation. The sockets and the sockets of the veil. That's the sockets that hold up the veil. The veil is where they will. It offers that obscurity. We can see through, though. 100 sockets for the 100 talents, a talent for a socket. And that's what it was for. There was a judgment was in the foundation. And a judgment was that which, the round, that which goes around. It kind of completes it. And it's a talent, a round for a socket. And each one is for a socket, or to support it, to give it some strength. 28. And of 1,775 shekels he made hooks for the pillars and overlaid their capitals and made fillets for them. And of the 1,775 shekels, this other little bit here, this 1,775 shekels, made he the hooks for the pillars. This is what the hooks were made of, these works of men, for the pillars, those supports. This 1,000, that fulfills it. 7 is the perfect judgment. 70 now, we get 70 is 7 tenths. It's like the perfection of the law. It's the perfection in the law is this, that we get both the judgment and the blessing. We get the punishment and the restoration or the redemption from it. God says, try again. And these 5 shekels, because there's grace in the weight of the shekel. There's weight, there's grace in these judgments that come down from the sanctuary, and we'll find out the Lord's always merciful. He made the hooks, these works of men, for the pillars to help support it, and he overlaid their capitals, that's their heads, their tops, and made the fillets for them, these things that join them. It's all of silver. 29. And the brass of the offering was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. And the brass, the copper, that was offered, there was 70 talents. We'll find out. That's that work you're going to learn for yourself, my friends. This copper, you're going to have to learn from your own mistakes. 70 talents. It's the perfect judgment, as we'll see once again. 7 tens. It's the fact that you get the judgment, and then the blessing. You got the punishment, and you got the restoration. God forgave you. These things that go around. And finally, you learn from your lessons. 2,000 witness now the fulfillments. If this is to young and old, it doesn't matter how old you are. 400 shekels. It's the work of God, judgment being weighed out. It's the weight, it's the judgment of it. It's part of it. 30. And therewith he made the sockets to the door of the tent of meeting, and the brazen altar, and the brazen grating for it, and all the vessels of the altar. And therewith all this copper, this weight of copper here, is what the sockets, those things that support the door, where they go in and out of the tent of meeting, and the brazen altar, that's where they offered the offering. We'll find out for your sins, and the brazen grating. We'll find out that copper grating was made of it for it. All the vessels of the altar, everything that went with the altar was made with the copper. 31. And the sockets of the court round about, and the sockets of the gate of the court, and the pins in the tabernacle, and the pins of the court round about, as well as the sockets of the court, these bases, these foundations, that helps give it some strength of the court. That's the outer enclosure, all the way around. All the sockets of the gate, that's where they go in and out for judgment of the court. And the pins, these things that hold it together, these fasteners that secure the tabernacle together, bind it together. All the pins of the court. All these fasteners of the court round about were made of this copper, my friend. Copper, we'll find out, because you're just going to have to learn these things for yourself. Sometimes we can offer some instruction, but it doesn't mean that anybody has to listen. Let us move forward. Exodus chapter 39. Turn and return.